Hello,
We are live. This is the
finally.
world. This is the world of our children, isn't it? It's
Well, a good bit of time to get this going, but I'm glad we finally have done it.
absolutely. Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
and this is going live, and we've titled it "Calling All Young Nigerian Entrepreneurs." Now, hello, friends, family. Um, I'm on this video because I actually want to introduce you to a very old friend of mine, Jimmy Bradbury. Just to give you a little bit of background, Jimmy and I met in the mid 1980s, I think, mid to late 1980s. In London, we were both working on a project, quite a prestigious project in the heart of London for a very demanding client. And Jimmy arrived one day at the practice where I was working, and he was the QS and project manager on the job. And we quickly became well, we worked really well together, got on famously, and we quickly became friends. And we have stayed in contact on and off. Jimmy has moved around quite a bit. He spent a good period of time in London, and then has been and lived in the Far East, and worked out there and in India. And we are now speaking to him from Australia. And we started having a conversation because he has set up a website. He, like me, believes very much in giving back to young people, and we want very much to see lots of young millionaires in the world today, given the current technology. And Jimmy is bringing the wealth of over 30 years of experience in international business and construction, interaction, mergers and acquisitions, a whole host of things that he'd like to bring to businesses small and large. But primarily, we want to, um, I've spoken to him about all the young entrepreneurs that we have in Nigeria and how enterprising our young people are, and how they are so, how there's a great need for this kind of coaching and mentoring advice, so that people can take things from being cottage industry to much, well, to being able to tap into the Nigerian market as a whole and not just be limited by physical things. And so I think that one of the things that I've spoken to Jimmy at length about is about the fact that Nigeria, the sort of situation in Nigeria is not as rosy as it is for the young colleagues who live abroad and who have things like, regular, power and water, and the fact that in spite of all these limitations, that young people are doing fantastic things out of Lagos and other states. And so I think the first thing I'd like to um, ask Jimmy to talk about, well, first I'd like him to say a little bit about himself, and then I'd like you to talk about how you think that you can assist, given the sort of major challenges that young people in Nigeria face, which are different, say, from the European or the Western world, but perhaps not that dissimilar from places like India. Over to you, Jimmy.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Annette, and thank you for the warm welcome. I have to meet this person you're talking about. It's very nice, and very, very delightful welcome. So thank you for that. I grew up in Ireland, and I went to boarding school when I was quite young. I then went to college and studied in Dublin, and it was the mid '80s, and when I qualified, there was no work in Ireland. There was a huge recession, and my dad wasn't going to have any of it. He said, "You've got to get on the boat. You got to you go and find yourself a job. And that really began my journey of living around the world. And I have pretty much lived around the world since then, over the last 30 years. So I went to the UK, and I traveled by train down to London, and I got a job down in London. And one of my first projects was with you, Annette. You're right. We were working on a big office building in the middle of middle of the financial district in London. And remembering back those days, that was the days of the Big Bang. And even big projects like Canary Wharf hadn't really even begun, being thought about. So, and a lot has changed in that time, and a lot in the world has changed as well. I remember even at that time, I didn't have a mobile phone. Mobile phones didn't really come in, at least for me, until the mid-90s. So, the internet and Facebook and social media just wasn't around at that time. So a lot has happened in the last 30 years, and I believe that a lot is going to happen, not just in the next 30 years. I believe a lot's going to happen in the next 7 years. I believe that the world is going to change more in the next 7 years than it has done in the last 150 years.
Yes.
And technology allows us to do that. The internet allows us to do that. Social media allows us to connect like we're doing now to the world in real time. And our children who've grown up in that environment, and the young entrepreneurs that we're talking about in Nigeria, have known no different. They've never known life without the internet. They've never known life without a mobile phone. And depending on their age, they've probably never known life without social media. And so we're in definitely the most exciting time ever to be alive. When we look back on our generations of our fathers and mothers and their fathers and mothers, and we look at what they had to go through, the generation that we have today here in this world have got so much opportunity, and giving them the opportunities to realize that chance is what I'm really about, and being able to help people take the pieces that they've got, which are the internet, technology, and social media, be able to connect, and also be able to take an idea that they might have and turn it into a business. And I'm doing a lot of mentoring and coaching now with people one-on-one, but also, as you're right, I've built a website and I've got an online training platform, because what I want to be able to do is share this message with as many people as possible. And the message really is, helping them with my experiences. Yes, my successes, but I think I also probably more importantly want to share with them the challenges I've had in life, the things that haven't gone well, the things that have failed, because I think it's in those moments that people really learn how it is that you deal with a challenge. I don't know if you've ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, but in it he says we are really defined by how we respond to situations, how we respond to failure and challenges, and that's what's really important. And I want to be able to take people on that journey of how it is I was challenged many times in life, and how I found a way through to be able to get through it and get out the other side and get a result.
Thanks, Jimmy. That's really great. I mean, I've got a couple of things that I wanted to sort of to ask you about, because one of them was, what would you say would be the number one thing that a millennial needs to start a business in a developing country like Nigeria? Now, hold that thought. Before you answer that question, I want to sort of paint a picture for you, because, for example, there are a couple of one of our bigger banks in Nigeria has what's called a food fair, and it also has, I think they do a sort of beauty and fashion fair. It's and I went to I went to it. It's in they do it in sort of relatively affluent part of Lagos, and it was quite amazing. It's like a big hall um, uh, with the like sort of like a big warehouse, and then there's a big sort of outside space, and you have, you know, hundreds, maybe I don't know if there are maybe thousands, but hundreds of small businesses, young Nigerians who are doing everything from creating, you know, a powdered version of a soup that is packeted and that you can you pop it in a pot after work, and you can create your create a meal. You can turn it into a stew, to baking, to different forms of juicing, and you know, a lot of, and peppers, you know, quite industrious, fantastic, you know, creams using traditionally found products like shea butter, and you know, there's quite a host of things that these fantastic young people are creating. But they're all cottage industries, and they all face the challenge of not of and the obstacles of not being able to going from just creating, you know, maybe thousands of that product to be able to creating millions of that product, and to be able to reach a large part of the Nigerian market, you know, given our huge population. And a lot of those obstacles have to do with infrastructure, you know, such as power and water, which are two very key things to be able to produce things hygienically and effectively. And so I also wonder, you know, how how your this platform could encourage and help them to reach those heights, you know, in spite of those challenges. So there's two questions.
Okay. Well, I think the first question is, I think what the millennials need is a, you know, to be successful, you need to have an element of curiosity. You need to be able to use your imagination. And you know this best of all, Annette, because you're an architect. You know, it's inherent in you to be creative. And that's what people need to be if they're going to have a business of their own. If they're going to be an entrepreneur, they need to be not just passionate about what they do and enjoy it, but they also need to be able to be creative in the ways that they take the information that's available to them. You know, today it's no longer about information, because information is here in your phone. Everybody has got it, the same amount. And we don't need to find information anymore. It's there for us, readily available. What we need to do is to be able to take that information and use it in a creative way that people see value in it. And if they see a value in it, and it helps them solve a problem that they've got,
Yes,
then they'll pay for it, and then immediately you've got a business. So if I put that in context with you in the food store, I don't know a lot. I know some of it. I don't know a lot about Nigerian food, but I do enjoy good food. And I would be prepared to listen to somebody who was able to tell me how it is that I can prepare Nigerian food. And if I felt it was of value to me that I wanted to put on a party that was Nigerian themed, I'd pay that person for their tuition. And if
yeah,
you just take that idea and transform it to the world, here's the context. 3 million new people are joining the internet every day. 3 million people every
yeah,
single
it's
day are joining
incredible.
the internet. You just need to find a percentage of those people who are interested in knowing more about Nigerian food. And you can use the same example in the Nigerian clothes, you know.
Yes. Well,
I
that
don't
is
know.
already an export, you
I
know,
don't know
and
much about Nigerian clothes, but I'd like to.
that is already
If
an
I
export, which is already doing extremely well. The fashion industry, a lot of the designers are already selling, you know, and I think that some of them attend the various fashion weeks in New York and even London. And that is because that there is a sincerely a very high quality, and they've been able to, and they've managed to reach that international audience. But
Yeah.
there's no reason why that shouldn't apply to any of these other industries as well.
Yeah.
And this is where I think there would be that value that you could bring to so many other industries, which we need to. I believe that, because I believe that if we give our young people the tools that they need to build their businesses, they will take Nigeria to the place it needs to go. You know, they
Absolutely.
will be the ones who will turn it around and will, you know, um, make this, you know, turn this GDP into something quite phenomenal, you know.
Mm.
And
And
this forum is our attempt to see how we can reach and give back and be able to support these young people. So
yeah.
another question is that another factor to think about as well, which is, if you like, an obstacle, is that the Western world is essentially a credit-based economy. You know, you can do a tremendous amount. You know, in the UK, if you got good credit, you can get credit cards, you can borrow, you can, you know, leverage finance in order to help you to you know, to build your business on and scale it, take it from a, you know, from A to B. And but Nigeria is essentially a cash-based economy. And even though I say, and even though we've got, okay, let me backtrack a minute. First of all, let me say that I think we have probably a much more advanced banking industry than Europe, because in Nigeria, all transactions are tracked. And when you make a purchase or you pay for something, you get an instant alert to your phone, which is registered, which tells you what your balance is on your account. And in fact, you know, the banks have encouraged a cashless economy, shall we say it, you know, so that there is more and more, encourage more and more transactions being done either through the mobile phone or through the use of, you know, cards. And to some extent, that's been slightly curtailed with devaluation of the naira in the last year or so. But those systems are still there, and they are still, you know, highly efficient. The challenge is that it is still based on the money you have in the bank. You know, it's not credit, even though, you know, all these transactions are tracked and they, you know, anything you pay for, bang, it's straight onto your phone. It'll tell you how many thousands you've got left or millions you've got left in your bank in your account after each transaction. You can transfer internationally, you can transfer locally, you can transfer even, and I don't think we have it here, but you can actually pay people through your phone. You know, that is a very sophisticated system that has been developed in Nigeria. And so what tends to work, and which is where again, you know, it's thinking outside the box, are situations where one is able to fund or build finance through using these systems because of the lack of available financing, and the fact that, you know, everything is dependent purely on what's in the bank, what's in your bank account, what you have in your hand. You know, how can that advice and that coaching again help to step beyond, you know, those limitations?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it comes back to being able to think about the bigger picture. I think the advantage that the generation that we're talking about, the millennials, have is that they're interconnected on a global basis. And whilst they may be based locally in
Yeah.
Nigeria, they are connected with people and systems that operate around the world.
Yes.
And they're very used to now knowing what actually is happening and what's available um, around the world, whether they be financial systems, or whether they be just people that they're talking to and getting advice from. So I think it's really important that they use those connections to be able to understand what is available for them, both in their local market, which I think you've been explaining, but also what's available to them in the outside world. Like, just on the issue of finance, the other great thing about today is that to start up a business, you need very little capital to do it. Very little capital to do it. So, for example, the knowledge that we use this kind of wider term of knowledge commerce, which effectively is taking your knowledge and being able to commercialize it in a way that you're providing value to somebody who then buys it. That's a $200 billion business and growing exponentially by the day. And that essentially is really just being able to take that knowledge that you've got and being able to share it with people. You don't need lots of capital to be able to do that. You need a phone, you need an internet connection, and you need some Wi-Fi, and get on and help people solve their problems. Sometimes we get kind of caught up in this feeling, well, I'm going to start up a business, so I need an awful lot of money to do it. So I think, that's something I think the generation of the millennials are very familiar with doing. Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, just to touch on one of the, the other sort of obstacle, I suppose, is, that there is always also the issue of, corruption in our systems and so on. But I think that perhaps, again, becoming more internet and, the advent of, online banking and sort of the internet interface actually has a role in minimizing that, because there's always the philosophy that as you separate people from actual physical physical cash, you actually minimize that aspect. But there is the wider issue of where if you're looking out for government contracts and that kind of thing, then you have more difficulties and more challenges there. I think perhaps at this point, Jimmy, what would be really useful would be for you to talk about the offer that the course that you've set up on the jimmybradbury.com, www.jimmybradbury.com, and also to talk about the offer, the sort of reduced offer that you were making to those to our young Nigerians, to make it more accessible to them, and how that would work, and how they can benefit from that.
Okay, so it really goes back to something that I've been thinking about doing for the last number of years, which is really taking the knowledge and experience that I've had of living and working around the world, in London, which we've talked about, in New York, Los Angeles, places I lived in, Mumbai, Hong Kong and Manila, and here in Australia, is to take that knowledge and experience from the last 30 years and be able to put it in a platform that I can then share it with people who feel there's value in it, and find it would help them in their life and in their business. So I built a platform through my website, jimmybradbury.com. You're right, that's Jimmy with 2 I's and 2 M's, Bradbury.com. And
we'll put those links on at the end of the
Great. There's a course there, which is a monthly membership subscription, normally for $39 a month, where you can join and get training in certain aspects of business. So, for instance, this month, the training is about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, with a lot of downloadable worksheets and free takeaways. and an audio that you can listen to it in a car or on podcast, which actually tells you from my own experience in my own business and coaching my clients, the 4 ways that you can grow 10 times the number of leads, quality leads, and referrals that you get in business and convert them into more fee-paying clients. So those are real tangible ways to do that. 4 ways that will, if implemented, I can guarantee will grow your referrals and your leads for your business and turn them into fee-paying clients. So that's an example.
That sounds very exciting.
It is. And these are, as I say, these are backed up by things my clients are doing and that I'm doing in real time every day. And sometimes we kind of feel there's a bit of overwhelm, isn't there, about what we do. But I think if you concentrate on these 4 ways, 3 of which are real ways, the 4th one is really how you bring it together on a regular basis and measure it to make sure that you're on track. If you concentrate on these 4 ways, I guarantee you that you will grow your business. So that's a tutorial I've got this month. It's $39. It's a 45 to 50-minute video where I explain those 4 ways. I give download worksheets. I give you an audio, as I say, and I'll be doing similar things every month. And when people join the platform, there's no tie-in contract. There's no, you have to do it for a year or anything like that. You can just come for a month, take the information and use it. But if you stay in it, then obviously you get the benefit of all the previous months of training that you can then build a library from and be able to use that in your business. So, the $39 is obviously making it affordable to people. And then obviously, we run discounts from time to time. And I know that we've discussed an option for a discount for, the people that in Nigeria to help them. So, I try and deal with the discounts separately to the actual what's there on my website for people to be able to see. Yeah.
Well, yes, I mean, we did discuss that, and I think I think it'll be quite. I think it's flexible enough because I think it's a good idea that to join, that you're not tied into a contract that commits you for a year or 2 years or whatever, that you can just join and get it. If you get you could get a month's worth and decide that it's for you or not for you, or if your funding isn't for a young person isn't going too well this month, you can skip a month and go on to the next month. But certainly, Jimmy, we have discussed the discount, and definitely anyone who contacts will provide you with a link for that discount. I think you've brought it. We've got a sort of an early introduction, an early bird kind of thing, introduction, which was $22 a month for those who come on board within a short period of time, which will be we'll list those links at the end of the video. But I think that it's no more than converted to our local currency. It's no more than a DSTV subscription per month, which most people do pay. And so I think for that reason, it's affordable and achievable for many. And you'll probably find that some people will club together, possibly to do a group session, even if it's to make it more affordable amongst themselves, maybe one of them, and they sort of share to watch a video or something like that. But I think the idea is to reach as many people as possible, to be able to hopefully help them raise their game and be able to change their lives. In fact, you haven't said that phrase. What was it? To live the life you imagine. What was the
Well,
phrase you
yeah,
have on there, which I think is
yeah,
quite an important one? To live your dream,
yeah, to live
to
your
believe that
imagine.
you can, achieve beyond a certain level and to live it. I
Yeah.
think you had that message, and perhaps I'll let you share that at this point before we
Yeah.
close down.
Well, I think it's, we grew up in a generation that was, very, very structured in that you went to school and you went to college, you went to university, and then you got a degree or a diploma, and then you went on and you worked in a business and you worked your way up through the business, and you worked really hard in that kind of 9 to 5 environment. You worked for 40 hours a week for 40 years, and then at the end of it, you got 40% of your income in a thing called a pension. And usually for a lot of people, they also got a lot of debt as well. But the dynamics now have changed. In one generation, the idea of going and working in a job for 9 to 5 for somebody else, and just trading time for dollars, in this kind of linear income way is, I believe, fastly eroding. And it kind of goes back to, my an earlier point is that, the world's going to change more in the next 7 years than it did in the last 150 years. 150 years ago, 200 years ago, in the Western world, we all worked for ourselves. Companies
That's
are only
right.
a very small thing, a small period of time, the last 200 years. Before that, we all worked for ourselves. It was mainly on the farm. But today, that's where it's all going, I believe. We are going to be, this generation are showing us, they're going to be saying, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to work in this 9 to 5 job for 40 hours a week and for 40 years and then end up with just 40% of my salary as a pension. They want to do things where they can work remotely. And they can do this now, and they can live this life they imagine, as I say, because they can work remotely and do really well from it. And
Absolutely.
for me, how I can help them is give them the experience. They've got the information, they've got the knowledge. They don't have the experience because they don't have the 30 years. And that's what they really want. They want that experience. And I want to be able to share it in a way that not just a few can get it, but a lot can get it. And just help and inspire people to live the life they imagine, because they can do that. Their time is now. And
So right.
they've got so much opportunity now, so much opportunity. Yeah.
I think this is right because actually we are parents of millennials now,
Yeah.
and I'd like to think that in this day and age with this level of technology, that the sort of millennial child of every family has that chance and has that opportunity and can create that opportunity for themselves with the right guidance. And so
Yeah.
thank you, Jimmy, for agreeing to have this interview. I think it's been really enlightening talking to you about this. I think that as I say, we'll provide some links and we will be posting this video on a number of different platforms at the end of this. And we hope that it will reach, I hope that families will share it with their millennial children, and their millennial children will share it with their millennial friends, and anyone who they think will benefit from this association and this sort of mentoring and coaching. I think it will be really inspirational for many. And so I think at this point, as it's like near after midnight for us, but I think what time is it for you over there?
Just after 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Just
Your
after
day
nine
is
o'clock.
just starting whilst our day is
Yeah.
ending. And
Yeah.
Nigeria is on the same time as us. So thank you again, Jimmy. And I think at
You're
this
welcome.
point, I'll say, go on. You were saying?
It's all my pleasure. It's all my pleasure.
Yes. Well, I'll say good night whilst you say
Good
good
morning.
morning. Okay, Jimmy.
Tell me how you say good night. Tell me how you say good night in Nigerian.
Odaro.
Adar. So I've learned my first word. Thank you. All right. Have a
Okay, good night.
great evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks, Jimmy. Bye.